Welcome everybody to Tag, a podcast all about teaming up your sales and marketing to win big in business. I am Joshua Levoff, one of the hosts of the show. And as always, every single time I open the show, Chris Askew is also with me, laying down the marketing tips and tricks for you. Also handles our website, which can be found at tagteamup.com. Find our stuff there, listen to us there. You can listen to podcasts there, see our videos there. All content, tagging, sales and marketing together is found right there on the website. Today, we're actually excited to bring you a bunch of answers to a bunch of questions that the listeners have shared with us.
Yes.
And so, Chris, I'm actually going to let you actually have curated all the questions together.
Yes.
And we found a way to manage them in a way where we're going to just ask them the questions. We're going to answer them on air here. But at the same time, relevant to what we just covered with the last podcast and what we're kind of leading into to the next podcast, we're going to hit those questions first.
Yes.
Since it's content straight. And then other than that, we're going to handle some small business questions. So Chris, on to you, bro.
And just so you guys know that are listening, please still send in questions. This is not the first time that we're going to do this. So if you have anything else that, as we're going through this, some of this might be applicable to you. But if you see, if you have another question that you want to ask us, please send it through us throughout this whole series, and we'll do our best to get those questions answered on the show. All right, so Josh, our first question is actually from a listener. Her name is Haley, and she wants to know, how do I know who my ideal customer is? Pretty sure we just covered that in our last podcast. So, Josh, I don't think that podcast has aired yet, so she has not heard all that stuff yet. But Josh, why don't you just cover, how do I know who my ideal customer is?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. And Haley, great question. This is a question that when you're stepping out into the business sector and into the business world, you need to have this nailed down. Now you're going to have multiple customer segments possibly for your business, maybe multiple product lines or something to that effect. However, we just talked about this with the positioning statement last episode, which will be launching, have already been launched when you guys are listening to this episode. But with regards to how do you know who your ideal customer is, you want to really find the niche or to the customer you want to sell to, that person that is that's kind of tying into who needs your product the most, right? And when you're doing sales and or marketing, you're positioning your content to them, you're positioning your pitch to them. And as we talked about in the positioning episode, you're really kind of coming up with the value you bring to that customer.
Yeah.
And so when you identify the value you can bring to that customer or a need that you satisfy, that's really kind of how I look at it. When I'm telling anybody in sales, when selling insurance, it's an intangible product. If you happen to have something like that, like a course or like a business program, or maybe you're a consultant or a coach, website, some of those things are intangible. They get the effects of it afterwards. So when I say selling something intangible, it's the benefit to that customer is what they receive on the other end. So how can their life be simplified, understanding that, hey, insurance has just helped give them peace of mind. They don't have to worry about any sort of thing happening anymore. This amount, right?
Yeah, and I think even if you have a tangible product, what you really need to be driving at is what is the experience that your customer has anyway. So, service even applies to tangible product as well as intangible product. And, our last episode was built off of, how do I determine, my target demographic? So, Haley, I hope that last episode helped you out, because that's the answer to your question right there, a whole episode. So hit the rewind button, go back one episode, listen to that whole thing, and then come back with any follow-up. How about that?
That's a good one. Yeah.
Right. All right. So, Josh, how can we best reach customers?
Really, Chris, just depends on which area your customers, you're focusing on them. Some of them may be found social media, where you kind of reach out to them in that area. They find you in that area. Everyone, it's 2019. Everyone needs to have a mobile/web presence, period. It's not even a negotiable anymore.
No.
Any new consumers that are in their 20-somethings or 30-somethings, they really don't look at the store first. They go to the website first. Can I find it at the store before I even waste my time going there?
Yeah.
So you have to have a web presence. So that's one way to find your customer. Two, as I mentioned, social media, whether that's your LinkedIn for your business customers, if you're doing B2B. Facebook is probably better B2C. Instagram is awareness of your product or your platform or your niche, whatever. Bringing value is key in this segment as well when you're looking to identify on how to best reach your customers.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, it really just determines, one of the better ways that Chris and I have actually determined is to get them on your own list that you own.
Yeah.
On somehow, whether it's an email list or a Facebook Messenger list, something where you can have access to them, where you're not hindered by any adjustments or changes made to maybe a social media platform.
Yeah. And I think, when we talked about who your target demographic is, one of the questions we made you answer in the last episode was, do you know where your target demographic spends their time? How do we best reach our customers? You have to reach your customers where they're at. And if they're at home on Facebook or on social media, that's fine. And that's not going to be the case for every business. There's going to be some businesses where it's going to make sense for you to do traditional advertising, billboards, radio, etc. So you just really have to answer the question is, where do my customers, where are they at? And then, best reach, not only is there reach as in locality, but there's also reach as in what's the right message. So, how do I best reach my customers is have a real solid, authentic message that you're speaking to them, and don't waver on that brand. Make sure that you use that positioning statement to develop your initial position, but then also refine your brand message. And we're going to cover that in a future episode as part of this series, how to develop your messaging. So don't, like Haley, put a pin in this one. We are going to circle kind of back to this, but reaching your customers is not just like reaching them with an ad, but also what message are you giving them? And that's actually the more important part of that puzzle anyway, because we can reach customers pretty easily by just paying for ads. But what a lot of rookie business owners do wrong, or small business owners do wrong, is they kind of get cart before horse and they just start blasting out the wrong message across every medium that they have. And what they're doing is they're actually degrading their future business because they're sending out the wrong message, the wrong brand message to customers, and implanting that in their mind. And it's just not what you want to do. You're going to have more work to do on the back end if you're doing it wrong first. So really get your messaging down first. That's the hardest thing. And it takes time. You just have to literally edit it down. Like that's the biggest key to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. So Josh, she follows up. How can we best add value to that customer's life, career, or company? I love the way she asked that, because that's something that business owners should be asking. It's not just about what you do, but how your customers interact and experience you. So Josh, what's the best way to add value to the customer's life, career, or company?
Oh man, this is a good question, Haley. And I wish more people would ask this question. Why did you get into business anyway? Right, in the first place. So this is kind of where that ties into this. So how do you add value to their life, career, or company? How about asking questions first? What do they want? What really is going to give them that value? What do they appreciate about your product? What is actually bringing them to your product? Because you may have an assumption, I've seen this all the time, you have an assumption of, oh, my product's going to serve the dental market, when really the buyers are actually people that are just patrons like myself are buying it after a dentist appointment, right? You may think that the dentists themselves are buying, when that may be a small limited capacity or people, there's only a small circle of people that are going to buy that, which is not a bad thing to go after. But as you roll back the data, you find that the data shows that the value is being added to those like myself that are patroning the dentist offices that are actually coming after the fact. But first and foremost, how do you add value? You ask what's important. What is important to the customer? Why are they even drawn to your product? Why do they even want what you have? And I think that kind of brings this for all three areas, career or company too. If you're doing business to business, not just B2C, same thing applies. What is going to give them, and it may be for them that if they make this purchase, they're going to look really good to the CEO or to the business manager. That may bring enough value for them. So you have to kind of find, as you're selling, this is more of a sales sort of strategy, but a lot of it comes with trial and error. Honest, a lot of it comes with trial and error. And so you may pitch it one way to one person, and their strategy is that they don't really have an ego, but they're looking to the betterment of their company.
Yep.
Another one their whole strategy may be what adds value to them. So it really just boils down to asking questions. And I think that's really the best way to go with this one.
Yeah, and I think too, when we talk about articulating our value to our customers, one huge trap that businesses fall into is they talk too much. And when we say, "How do I articulate it?" You're not writing an essay. You're not going to be, your message to your customer is not paragraph after paragraph after paragraph or chapters of books. A lot of business owners, God bless, like I've even seen billboards that have 25 words on them, and it's just too convoluted. The biggest key to good marketing and good advertising is boiling it down to its simplest function, as smallest amount of words possible that still communicates. And honestly, that takes time. That takes legitimate time thinking about what you're going to say, how to pare it down, how to edit it. So, Haley, how do I articulate our value to our customer? I'm going to say you got to get really good at editing, like really good at editing, and get that message, whatever that simplest message is to your customer, boil down to 15 words or less, preferably less actually, but 10 or 5 even if you can. But what is the main calls to action that you're doing? And really focus on editing it down as simple as possible. Josh, this one's going to be a pretty easy, so I'm going to throw you a little softball here. How can I measure my customer's experience? How do I know if they like what I am doing?
Ties right in, and this is from another listener that we had there. It ties right into what I just mentioned before. You ask. It is okay to ask a customer, even in front of you. And for instance, in the banking industry, we've talked about this, when I'm when I'm actually working at a bank now, and in the training development department too, when we work with the bank and we work with the employees and the tellers, one of the things we say to them directly is, it's okay to ask the customer, how would you like your experience to be today? Right?
Yeah.
How do you want me to serve you today? Those are key questions, and the customer will probably be taken back by that. Right. So so how can you measure that? Well, there's voice of the customer surveys, which is what ours is called at the bank, but it could be a survey that's sent out in a mass mailing. It could be an email follow-up to an interaction that they had with somebody at the call center. If you don't have a call center, it could just simply be, hey, I'd love your feedback on the experience that you had with my sales team. They would probably, this is something weird, kind of out of the box, but if the owner called of that company that I just patroned, if they called to ask me how my experience was, that's really, really cool. Just even a quick phone call from you, the owner, just ask honestly. Or if you're small enough where you're 1-2 people right now, meeting with those clients, doing a follow-up feedback kind of question or time. And that could be simply another way, to kind of build that connection with them as well and to maintain that customer experience. But it really just boils down to, you have to ask the customer, how they like their experience and how they enjoyed their time with you and that interaction.
Yeah. And you'd be really surprised too. A lot of customers are more than willing to do this, even without incentive. So, at the end of an email or at the end of a call, hey, can you take a quick 3-question survey for me? Or even just a 1-question survey, if you can really boil it down to, how's your experience between 0 and 10? Make it simple for the customer. And here, don't get greedy when you're asking. Keep it simple. Keep it boiled down to what are the metrics that you really, really need to know. And don't get greedy with asking too many questions, because you're going to push people away when you do that, unless you have a really solid connection with that customer.
One other thing to add to that, Chris, one other thing I wanted to add to that is learn this just recently, that instead of doing a Likert scale, so that's 0 to 5 or 1 to 10, as you mentioned, which some surveys it's relevant. Let's be honest. It's fine to have that. But where we've actually found, even internally at the bank, if you do a high, medium, or low scale, because really the difference from 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 may not be that big of a difference. But if you go high, medium, or low, you can really identify. So that's another angle to have with it. So based on your experience, last interaction with our customer service center, was the result of that interaction a good experience for you or a poor experience? Can you rate it high, medium, or low? Right? Medium being average, or you can even use average if you want, high, average, and low if you want, but something to that effect that's more clear in the answer, and that'll give you a gauge on really how you're being seen out in the marketplace.
That's good. And then the other thing I would say too is, how do I measure customer experience? Man, data. It might sound nerdy, but data is where it's at. Track your analytics. Josh is laughing at me. Track your analytics. Keep an eye on your numbers. I've heard it before in simplest terms, layman terms, people vote with their feet. So if your customer experience is poor, how's your sales going? You know what I mean? Like that's a really, really obvious indicator on how your customer experience is going.
And I'll give you actually a statistic too, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually ask you this question as a listener base too, and you guys can think of it. I'll pause for a second and I'll give you the actual answer. Of those customers, what percentage of them that had a good experience still left the company that they were patroning? 0 to 100%. Of the interactions that had good experiences with a bank or with an organization or a Target or a Walmart, whatever, what percentage of them still left to go to another bank or another institution or another place?
Low.
Okay, I need a percentage number on this
one. I'm going to say there is churn. So I'm familiar with that term. I'm going to say 35.
You are extremely low. It's actually 86% said even satisfied, they will still leave for another place or another patroning another place.
Wow.
Yeah. Super eye-opening that almost 9 out of 10 people, even having good experiences. Now, the other side of this too, takes 12 good interactions, probably closer to 16 or 17 now. This was taken a few years ago. 12 interactions, good positive interactions to make up for a negative one. So if you have that bad experience, it takes 12 good ones after the fact for you to kind of rekindle and go back to that. Now, not all hope is lost, but the sad part is even with those, so you got to be on. This is a great question, Haley. Great question. Or whoever said this one. Sorry.
This one was Haley's.
Yeah. Oh, it's Haley's. Okay.
Yeah.
Haley, great question, because customer experience now, especially in this tech world, it's kind of convoluted, and it's unfortunate that this, but still, when you go to a restaurant and you get horrible service because they don't know how to talk to you, right? I may never, ever go back to that place, and they'll never know because I silently walk away and they never know. But 9 out of 10 people will still leave even after great experiences. And that's so super surprising to me.
Yeah. And you know what? We really talk about family here. My wife is director of operations for Subway. And, they are training their people all the time on being consistent and having good customer service, because if you mess up that one time, just like you said, people walk and it's so hard to get them back. So really, guys, consistency is so important. And it's actually a good reason why, like, if you look at Chick-fil-A is crushing competition. Why? Because they're so nice, like all the time, like they hammer it into their training with every single employee that, it's about that servanthood attitude. It's how can I serve you? How can I bless you? Like, what can I, like, you go to McDonald's and go through their drive-through and you feel like you got to try to like threaten them in order to get an extra sauce. You go to Chick-fil-A and there's like 15 extra sauces without you even asking. You know what I'm saying? Like it's that above and beyond kind of approach. So, how can I measure my customer experience? Okay, like we've talked about that. Check your analytics, ask your customers, but you can also prevent bad customer experiences by just being consistent. But this is like one of those, how they say, like, I think it was Andy Stanley, he said vision leaks. So you always have to like kind of keep on preaching that. So the same thing with customer experience. To have good customer experience, especially if you have multiple employees, it's something that you have to constantly train. Because if you don't keep that customer experience right in the spotlight, people forget and people move on, and like your employees might kind of slack a little bit, or you as a business owner might even slack. So it has to be something that you kind of keep as a mantra of what experience am I providing? Because honestly, like, experience is the name of the game in 2019 as far as like what we're providing, whether it's a service, a good, or whatever. People buy off of experience now more than anything else, and what kind of service they're receiving, like the experience of the service. So excellent question, Haley.
Yeah, very good question.
All right, so we got another set of questions here from my buddy Chris. We might tap into a couple of these, and then we might part two this in the next gamut. So he owns like a small like wood shop that creates signs, and it's all custom. It's all hand carved, like all I think it's CNC, but it's all, every piece is customized. He does everything literally, like he can do photographs of like your dog or whatever, and like the thing routes it out. It's really kind of cool stuff. So he's asking, what's the best way to get your name or business out to everyone other than social media? And I get it. Like, I hear you. Social media, a lot of the times, honestly, social media, unless you're using like Instagram, where it's swipe up in order to make a purchase, or if you're actually selling on Facebook directly, it's sometimes very hard, because when people are on social media, one good tip I'm going to give you, Chris, like, I know you advertise a lot on social media, but the truth is, on social media, people are on social media when they're bored, not necessarily when they're buying. So social media is a good place for brand awareness, not always a good place for sales. Unless, like I said, you're taking advantage of like Instagram, swipe up to directly purchase. You have to remove as many barriers as possible when you're trying to sell on social media, just because making that jump can get really, really difficult and really tricky. So as far as getting your name out there, I'm a very big believer in, digital marketing. That's one thing that we do. I'm a very big believer in content marketing. Position yourself as an expert. You should be writing about what you're doing. You should be telling stories, not just trying to sell your product, but sell yourself as a brand ambassador. Take pictures of what you're doing, take video of you making these things, talk about the stories, because what you're making, I know this guy, and what he makes is very personal stuff for people, because it's like, hey, if I'm an Ohio State fan, I can actually get an Ohio State a wood carving like thing made on my wall, and it's really intricate and beautiful. So, he's got stories where he's talking to people that are buying these products directly with them. You make it about your customers too. Bring your phone along and actually do a video with them. Like, if you're meeting them in person, because I know sometimes he does do that, because some of them are really big products and he can't transport them other than by like delivering it or them coming to pick it up. Some of it he sells directly. That's great. But, still get your stories out there. Tell your story rather than selling your product. Make that like a big focus. And then also do content, like write, put blog posts out there, do some research. We're going to be talking about content marketing in this series also, and how to do that properly by doing research first on like keywords online, and then writing kind of around that. And again, it sounds nerdy, but I'm trying to stack the deck with as much facts before we kind of jump into that. And then the other way is just raw advertising, getting on, Google ads, not necessarily search. Search is okay sometimes, but, display ads are really cheap right now. So that's a good method to get out there. Create some sellable landing pages for your product. Josh, do you have any ideas too? I know I've been kind of like talking.
No, that's fine though, because, again, this is kind of your expertise when you're talking about, reaching out there other than social media. Chris, this boils back to what I open up the show with, which the very first question, which is having a website presence.
Yep.
Like the bullet, it's $15 a month probably for your hosting, another $15 a year for your domain name. Make it creative, make it catchy, and honestly, other than social media, So, Chris, when I read this question, it sounds a little bit like you're intimidated that you don't have a huge audience, possibly, and that's what we need to address. So more than why you don't want to, I feel like, or what's a better way to, we're giving you some of those tactical things. Yeah. But if we address the fear of being on social media, now granted, let me tell you, Chris and I, we launched this Tag Team Up website. We have our social media presence. We don't look at the numbers.
Oh God, dude. I got so discouraged looking at our YouTube stat. Like Josh and I talked about that the other night. So sometimes like Josh nails it. Like, I'm the one who messes it up because I'm an analytics guy and I really need to be listening to my co-host, because he's like, Chris, stop looking at the numbers. And like, there's times when I look at some of them, because we really focus a lot. We've grown huge on LinkedIn, and that's where we've really focused. We have a somewhat decent following on Facebook, but on Twitter, we kind of suck right now. And we just started YouTube. So like our videos have like next to no views, but it's because we just started, you know what I mean? So like I kind of had to kick my butt about this, the last couple of days, literally, cause like I looked at our stats and I texted Josh. I was like, this sucks. And like, he was basically like, shut up, kid. Like, stop looking at the number.
And here's the thing too, Chris, with what you offer, right? It's a very unique thing, but it's very customized.
Yeah.
And the customization part, that's what you should capitalize on, because where else are you going to get it? It's you customizing what you want, and you're the artist, and that's what's so interesting. People pay for artists and artistic things,
Yes.
and they'll pay a lot sometimes for it. And we can't get into it now on this question and answers, but eventually we'll be able to talk, or if there's other questions talking about price point and all that, when it would be good and when it's not profitable. There's so many factors to put into it, but I love the fact that you're customizing, period. And so as a salesperson, Chris, I'm just going to get down to the nitty gritty, man. You have to be good at sales to sell anything. And I don't mean that in a weird. I'm saying you have to be good at sales to sell anything. If you have this product, you're selling either your story, you're selling your product, or you're selling your company, or you're selling yourself.
Yes.
And first, you have to sell yourself. And so, what Chris is saying, to wrap this back in to answer this question, the story behind how you even came up with this idea to create these products, woodworking or whatever. That's big. That's important. That's what you need to nail down on some foundational pieces. But then 2, stories attached to like I did this placard for a customer who was experiencing a loss from something.
Yeah.
Well, that story connects. Emotions is what drives customers. It's the pace at which you say things too that drives customers. It's how you write things that drive customers to buy. But social media is meant as an avenue of awareness to lead to the sales piece. And so without belaboring this anymore, just saying this, Chris, if you're nervous and frustrated, so are all of us, right? We're nervous about social media. Do they not care about our stuff, right?
Yeah.
But 1 or 2 posts, man, can really blow it up. And Chris and I are still looking for those 1 or 2 posts, but we're just being vulnerable to let you know that, hey, you're not the only one but we said yes. And in September, we launched this podcast. And it's been awesome. And the camaraderie and the things that we're doing with it, but even reaching out on social media, the customer base, you're not going to see profitability for a while because you're still putting a lot of your time and effort into those products and building. But the cool thing is what you need to capitalize on is your uniqueness in customization.
Yeah. And yeah, just to tag in too, like you said about the website, it's not enough just to have a website. Your website has to be tuned for sales. You have to have the proper keywords on the website. You have to have proper descriptions on the website. You have to have all the meta tags in the background on the website. So a lot of people think that they can just get like a Wix site and call it done. But in reality, like it's okay at the beginning, but as soon as you possibly can, you do need a professionally produced website that's written well, that has the calls to action, that converts well. And there's ways to track conversion rates on a site, conversion rate optimization, to make sure that your website is actually selling. That's the really big key. Mm-hmm. It's not enough just to have a dumpy looking website. Like you've got to have something that actually leads to sales. All right, next.
Last part to say to that too, but I think, Chris, honest to goodness, the last part of this for you is it's just down and dirty sales. It's the grind. You got to go through the grind to sell your products, showing samples to things, showing samples to business owners. Maybe a business that has multiple locations would benefit from your product. Maybe they want their sign to be in wood. Maybe they want just awards that they give out every quarter. You never know, but it's just down and dirty, building connections. I think that's really where you're going to see the biggest bang off of the web and off of social media.
Yep. So the next one, he says, how do you deal with negative publicity? The only reason why I ask this is because I got called a scammer because I didn't send the free prize this lady won until a week later. So he still sent it, but not for a week later. But then her and her group of friends, because dude, he's customizing this, so it takes time. Realize that, people. So she and her group of friends started harassing people on my Facebook page, kept harassing me via Facebook and calling me. I ended up taking my Facebook page down because it was getting bombarded with trolls.
Oh, Chris, I'll let you take the lead on this one, man, because you're the marketing and the social media guy, bro. I mean,
all right. I'm going to say, Chris, I hope you learned your lesson. You have to communicate with your customers. If you would have set up the expectation that, hey, you won this free prize, but I literally have to make it for you. So it's going to take a week or 2 weeks for delivery before you get that. I think that would have solved a lot of your problems. The other thing is, as far as social media goes, you can't really tuck and run. Like you can't just take yourself off of social media because there's so many different avenues where people can blast you anyway. Like for example, Yelp and Google My Business, they don't allow you to take down negative reviews. unless you can really contest it with like super good facts on why. But the chances of getting a negative review off are pretty low, so you have to learn how to deal with negative reviews. You just do. And that comes with actually, like, rather than deleting the Facebook page altogether, dialogue with that person. I know it's going to suck, but you got to take your bruises. You got to be kind to them in every single instance with them that's publicly facing and even privately facing. So, make sure that you're directly communicating with your customer. Hey, I'm sorry this happened. I completely take full responsibility for it. We were in the process of making this. I could have communicated that earlier to you. I'm sorry. We will get this out to you as soon as possible. And I know it sucks because you're giving away something free and somebody's being nasty about it. But I mean, like, it's life. That does happen.
Yeah. And Chris, I was going to say too, like, tying into that, you're absolutely right. And the other thing, I teach to how to communicate with people. You want to kind of match tone. And I don't mean match volume. So if somebody's very, very frustrated and angry and they're loud with you and you're having a conversation with them on the phone, you want to, like, lower the tone, right? You want to, like, lessen the effects of that call. And so you want to, like, drop your voice or like a level down to kind of match that. With regards to online comments, I've seen the show The Profit. It's a very big business show on CNBC. And we've seen on there where Mark Lemonis, the owner, will literally talk to customers looking at the reviews, whether it's on Yelp or on Facebook or wherever. And you'll see the owners kind of get defensive and fight back. And you don't know what my customers are talking about. You don't know what my employees are talking about. You don't want to do that. And as Chris said, I'll second that. You don't want to take your page down, because give people like myself the opportunity to look and see that this lady was just bitter about something and she was frustrated, right? They'll look right through that. So you don't want that to be the case. Now, if it's multiple people over a period of time and you get 1 stars instead of 5 stars, then you have to, as Chris said, give better expectations, verbalize or written, and or make it a more realistic opportunity for customers, right? Don't give them 2 to 3 weeks shipping time. It's really going to take 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Some customers will still buy. And I know there's that whole aspect of, well, I need money. I get it. But at the same time, you have to be realistic, as we talked about with positioning, understanding your target market and who they are. If they want something, they're willing to wait, even if it's good, right? They are willing to wait. So I think, to answer that, negative publicity is going to come. It's just part of the roadmap of the journey that you're on, and to build your business. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs was even fired from his company. So talking about negative publicity, he ended up coming back and reviving it to the first $1 trillion company in the world. So, it's just one of those things. Negative publicity is going to happen, but give others like myself the opportunity to look at that feedback and say, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I hope that's one of the tactical things we can give you.
And then if you're being really, we talked about earlier, customer experience. If you're really focusing on a good customer experience anyway and being consistent with that, you're going to see that this is not going to be the norm. It sounds like you had a traumatic experience, but as traumatic experiences go, you got to build a bridge and get over it, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you have to move on, because there's other customers out there who do want your product. And if you let this bad apple spoil the bunch, like, dude, you're going to be broke. You know what I'm saying? So,
and the momentum is gone. All the momentum you work to get up there. So
yeah, build a bridge, get over it, buddy. All right. So the next one is it seems like when I advertise in the buy, sell, trade groups on Facebook, I get more sales when I'm posing as myself, but when I pose under my business, I get less sales. What's the reason for this? Oh, the reason is because people like to connect with you. I mean, like, it is what it is. Like, we've been talking about that. You make more sales when people can connect with you. The best brands are the brands that are the most human. Okay, I've said that a couple different times on this show. The best brands are the brands that are the most human. And man, I'm telling you right now, like, your best bet is to be your own brand ambassador. Make it about what you're doing, the custom stuff you're selling. We said it earlier. I don't want to belabor it, but that's totally why you're getting more sales. Because people want to do business with people. They do, rather than just some random business name. So don't think that you have to sell under your business name, like, necessarily. Like, yes, you're going to have your business name out there. That's not going to change. But what I'm saying is, like, when you're posting, like make your post more about what you're doing and how you're interacting with your customers. Tell stories, man. We've been saying that, preaching that. Tell stories, all right? And people will catch on to that.
Now, Chris, also to kind of add into this, unless you're looking to sell your company to a larger organization or establishment, the brand really, at this point in stage in your situation, doesn't really matter. Granted, it matters for taxes, obviously, if you're going to LLC or not. But at the stage that we're at right now, or that you're at, the brand doesn't matter as much. And
even if though you're selling your company and you're a brand ambassador, there's definitely ways to exit your company and still sell it, but you have to build up another brand ambassador over time during the course of that sales. And usually what happens is somebody sells off a business like that, but they decide to remain on for another year, year and a half while they're bringing another person with them and having that other person be the face of the business. Hey, by the way, just throwing this out there, I know an entire team of people that does this financially for people if you're selling your business. And like, we can definitely talk to Marcy and she will give some great business advice for that. So Marcy, she's one of our listeners. Shout out to you, girl. We'll throw people your way for sure on that. And maybe we can have you on the show. All right. That was a little bit of an aside, wasn't it? All right. Yeah, we're rolling low on time. Let's answer one more question. Then we'll answer the rest of Chris's questions later because he's blasting a lot. When you're selling low price items, how do you get consistent sales? My only market is on Facebook. I have Etsy, but no luck. Should I reach out to local stores to put my items out there, or at least storefront or newspaper?
Chris, I'm going to take the lead on this one, man, because this is a good question, but this ties directly into beating your own drum first and foremost. But here's the thing. Anytime you are selling online, period, you're going to have to do a lot of legwork just to get people to those sites. Yeah. Like Chris was saying, either advertising on Facebook to send them to an Etsy page, which you see that all the time, which is fine, or directly sell in Facebook Marketplace. That's what it's meant for. Or directly sell on Craigslist. But you have to let people know. And so you can have people in your network share it to their network, and then beyond, it can go. But honestly, man, Etsy, no luck. It's customized. I think that you have to drive people to that. I think this boils down to now storefront. That's a great question. Lease or storefront. I know back in where I'm from in the Youngstown High area, living in Honolulu, Hawaii now, for those that don't know, kind of Chris and I are doing this multiple locations, which is totally awesome and cool. Back in the Youngstown High area, there's actually a thing called the Youngstown Flea, and it's actually a flea market for makers and for specialists that do these things. Find something like that to go to or to be a part of. It's very, very low barrier entry.
There's a coffee shop, a real popular coffee shop in our area, and the whole front end of the coffee shop is like a t-shirt store that sells like locally made stuff about our city. So there's ways to do that. The other piece of advice, though, that I would say is, Chris, stop selling low-priced items. You make custom things.
Yes.
Dude, I've seen your price point. It's way too low, brother. Way too low for what you're offering. So
and actually, I had to have this conversation with my mom. My mom's doing quilts out of a hobby, so she's never going to make a big business out of it. She doesn't want to, right? She just does it in her spare time just to pass the time. But she was paying for it out of pocket, and it was like about $100 a quilt just in material. Yeah. And I said, Mom, you could probably charge $600, $700. I said, think about your hours and how many hours you spend in it. She's like, I spent probably 20 hours in this quilt over the month. I said, Mom, 20 hours times $10 an hour is only $200 more. That's $300 with materials. So the numbers add up quickly. So Chris, take what the length of time that you're making plus the product material and materials, raw materials, anything. There's a whole formula of things you have to go through on this. But I can almost tell you, if you're looking to replace your income, you're going to have to think a lot differently about this. Yes. You're going to have to think a lot differently about this. And we're never saying don't sell low-priced items, because Walmart has made $1 trillion off of selling low-priced items. However, Walmart can also manufacture those items, which is what drives the prices even lower for them to do it.
Yeah, but they manufacture it in China now, dude. So there's that.
Yes. We're not talking about – I'm not comparing you to Walmart. I'm just saying essentially – this goes back to positioning. I'm not just beating the drum because we talked about it, but it really does go back to finding out who your ideal customer is. Go back through the data. Who has actually purchased the products that you've had? You have a book of customers that has already purchased from you. Go back to them first. why did you buy? Can I ask you a survey? It's okay to go back to them and find out. And, you know, the low price items, man, those are going to be the ones that you're going to have that negative publicity and negative feedback because it's not going to be to their standard. It's like, well, it's a $25 value. What the heck? Now, if you're selling a $250 customized piece that you spend 10 hours making, well, now you can justify the 6 weeks or the 3 weeks that it may take to do it, and you won't have really any issues on as far as timing goes anymore.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of advice on that. But yes, not that you're selling slow price items, unless you can build it or make those slow price items almost like a stamp, like over and over and over, very, very efficiently. Don't even play in that market right now, man, with a customized product.
Yeah, and like I could say, like, without, like, you know, one thing we're not doing is we're not telling like people's businesses on here. But I've seen his business, and brother, you can charge more for what you're doing. I guarantee it. I guarantee it, dude. All right, so he's got a couple more questions, but we're already kind of going along. So guys, this was a great episode. If any other listeners have questions, please go to tagteamup.com/SBS or tagteamup.com/smallbusinessseries. We have a form on there where you can ask questions. I have like a chat bot on the website where you can ask. You can jump onto our Facebook, onto our LinkedIn, onto our Twitter with our like 10 followers, onto our Instagram, and onto our YouTube with 2 views.
Stop looking at the numbers, Chris.
Dude, I know. Oh God, I know. All right, so but the good news is, as far as like a podcast goes, we're actually crushing it right now. So like that's definitely our like where we're doing well. So, but you know, hey, surprise, that's where we started. We're 26 episodes in now. So, but anyhow, guys, like, you know, our social channels, tagteamup.com. You can go to that website. There's links to all of them. Ask us questions. We'll be more than happy to answer them directly for you. If you have even like show ideas, like, you know, hey, I could really use an entire show based off of this, please give us suggestions. We're open to that. So, excellent, guys. This was a great episode. Josh, thank you for tuning in all the way from Hawaii.
My pleasure.
Hey. All right, guys. We'll talk to you guys next episode.